Raised on a steady diet of old films running on television, the early 60s spawned the first generation of movie buffs that saw film as an art form that they were determined to be a part of.
I used to see Peter when he was writing for Esquire and barely keeping alive. As a matter of fact, we'd go to screenings at, say, at the Directors Guild, and he was always the first person at the table to get some food. It was clearly his only meal of the day.
Bogdanovich came west with new bride Polly Platt, looking for a way to break into movies.
We met Roger, we went to see last year at Marienbad. I'm pretty sure that was the film. And he was sitting behind us.
We got talking after the screening. We all went out and had a couple of drinks, and I became friendly with Peter, and he worked with me as a second unit director and general production assistant on The Wild Angels.
Roger kept missing shots. You know, he would fall behind during the day, and he kept saying, well, we'll shoot that in second unit. And I had never heard of that, but Peter was onto it.
I did everything you could possibly do, from ordering the lunches and making sure the laundry was out to rewriting 80% of the script without credit and directing 3 weeks of the second unit.
The Wild Angels was a major hit for Corman, and, as was his habit, he rewarded the young Bogdanovich with a chance to direct his own picture, if he could figure out how to use an existing Corman asset.
He said, take some footage from the Terror, shoot some additional footage with Boris Karloff, who owes me 2 days. And we looked at the movie and we were just devastated because we could not think of anything. I kept saying to Peter, why are these old Victorian horror films not scary? Peter he was shaving one morning and he walked out and he said, we'll use The Terror as a movie within the movie, and we'll have Boris Karloff play an aging horror picture star who speaks for us. You know, and he's the one who says, you know, these pictures are not frightening anymore. I'm a dinosaur.
And the other plot line is this young, all-American, good-looking boy who starts buying guns. And we see him, you know, spreading all his gun and eating a kind of a chocolate bar, very cool, and picks up as a rifle, telescopic rifle, and start aiming. And it's a very frightening movie because he starts shooting.
The film was so well made, Corman was able to sell it to Paramount Pictures. Paramount, like many of the old studios, was in serious trouble when it was acquired by Gulf and Western, a conglomerate headed by a mad Austrian.
Charles Bludon was his name, an Austrian-born fellow of megalomaniacal dimensions.
You think I make money on pictures? I don't make money on pictures. You know where I make money? Zinc, sugar, that's where I make money. Not pictures is bullshit. But I like it, and you know, I like to do it sometimes, but zinc.
And there was no logical business reason. I mean, let's put it this way. Charlie Bludon did not have a business plan as to what to do at Paramount. There was no grand design. He loved Hollywood, liked pretty women, and thought that he was a business in chaos. Maybe there was an opportunity here.
One of Bludorn's first decisions was to hire failed actor-turned-producer Bob Evans to run the West Coast operations. Hollywood wags assumed that Evans was a very attractive pimp for Charlie Bludorn. After all, who but a pimp would want to take over the moribund Paramount? Evans and Bart signaled Paramount's change of direction by signing the director of the European horror film Repulsion, Roman Polanski, to his first real studio deal for Rosemary's Baby. The picture was a big hit for Paramount, and the elfin, fun-loving Polish Polanski quickly became a part of Bob Evans' social scene. Evans would introduce Polanski to other young power players in the new Hollywood, including pals Warren Beatty and Jack Nicholson. Women, wine, parties, and good blow were some of the rewards of success in Hollywood, and Polanski, Nicholson, and Evans would, over the years, share their drugs and their women. But what none of these revelers could know was how often violence would crash their parties and change their lives, starting with Paramount's scheduled release of Targets in the summer of '68.
So, my thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there. Thank you.
I had my baby, my daughter, on my hip and had gone to vote for him. And that night, I remember when he was assassinated, after the initial shock and horror, I realized it was the end of Targets. I knew that no one would want to go see that movie.
Following the Kennedy assassination, the studio yanked targets from theaters. But for Roger Corman and the others involved in making the youth-oriented B-movie so successful at the drive-ins, it was a boom time, with one hit after another. The old studio bosses, however, continued hiding behind their high walls with their heads in the sand. But there was one studio head, Stanley Schneider at Columbia Pictures, who had a son, young enough and hip enough to hear the rumble coming down the road.
Burt is the single most significant person in post-1950s in terms of, I mean, he is the equivalent in terms of producers of what Selznick had been before. He revolutionized and radicalized filmmaking from the producer side. And mainly he trusted filmmakers and he gave them complete creative freedom.
Burt Schneider was the epitome of a certain kind of time and place producer. Everyone wanted to be Burt Schneider, and then nobody wanted to be Burt Schneider. Well, he was cool. He was so cool, it was like frightening.
He provided the drugs, he provided the sauna, he provided the pool, he provided the good vibes, he provided the notion that nobody should ever feel shitty.
I always thought Burt was kind of mean. Kind of scared me. You know, of course I met Bob later, and he's like a beautiful rebel kind of guy, Bob.
Bob Rafelson, a hip young writer-producer, and Burt Schneider, an exec at Columbia Pictures, had hooked up as friends in New York and came west with an attitude. They created Ray Burt Productions, a television and motion picture production company.
He was the center of an extraordinary little community.
The economic success of that put Burt Schneider and Bob Rafelson into the catbird seat. And what they chose to do with that is what's interesting.